Hello there, and I'm Malcolm Graham Wood, and in my guest today at Core Finance for my CEO interview, I'm delighted to welcome Olivier Mussat, who is the CEO of Atome PLC. Olivier, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Malcy. Great to be here.
Good stuff. Well, it's a very exciting day to be talking about what we're going to be talking about today. So, slightly differently to a number of my other interviews, what I'd really like to do, if I may, is ask you just to begin with, is to give a little bit about yourself, because I don't think quite some of the people in my side of the marketplace know about you, and then an overview perhaps of Atome before we go into a bit more detail. Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course, happy to. Well, I guess it's difficult to talk about oneself, but I started as a commissioning engineer in the power sector. I actually taking care of water in Europe and the UK market, and it's been quite fun to see how you go from electricity to oil and gas, which I joined Schlumberger. They worked in the Middle East, in Africa. Then I joined Standard Chartered in the oil and gas side, and I ended up being co-head of the oil and gas finance team. And for the past 9 years, I was with the International Finance Corporation, so the private investment arm of the World Bank. First doing investments in oil and gas, but then for over the past 5 years, integrating with a power team. We had nearly a $10 billion portfolio of oil and gas and renewable assets. So I transitioned to much more towards the new energies, from oil and gas, from gas, then to battery storage, and of course to hydrogen. So it was a bit of a full loop, going back to water and electricity. And during these discussions and conversations I had with a number of oil and gas companies into their transition, I went and ended up having this discussion with with people like Present Energy, which used to be an investor company for IFC.
Yeah.
And with this discussion, we realized that Present Energy had been in Paraguay for 10 years, importing all of its energy, all of its fertilizer, but yet was the place in the world where you had the second largest hydroelectric dam in the world, which 14 gigawatts of renewable power. And with the growth of the hydrogen economy, there was something that could be done, and to offering green energy that can be domestically produced at very cheap prices, because there's so much capacity in Paraguay that you can have electricity for pretty cheap, which is existing power. And then we replicated that same model in Iceland, where we saw again available green energy, not expensive compared to what you see in other places in the world, and then where we can apply the same principles to go and to produce hydrogen and ammonia, which took us out to then suddenly we say, listen, we have a business, we have to deliver a business, and whilst we were incubated within Present Energy, now we are spinning off because we realize oil and gas and water don't really mix, and investors are also not always the same. You look at the multiples of oil and gas company versus renewable companies, it's a different market, and we say, and we are the first one, and we said like nobody else on the market is actually a producer. Is like you have technological company on hydrogen, but no producer. So we say there's an opportunity, we going for it.
Yeah.
And so we are spinning up now, IPO before the end of the year, primary bid is going on now. It's busy.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. That's very useful. I think I was going to ask you about the president. I mean, because that's where we first met, actually. I think
correct. Yeah.
When you were investing there all those years ago. But I mean, obviously you've been within the president family for a while. Now you're coming here, and I think most interesting is the way you're doing this. When you first came into my mind a few months ago, I wasn't quite sure how President was going to do this or how you were going to do it. I thought that you might end up being in a private equity basket of some sort, and maybe even one or two other places. But you've come to London for a listing with primary bid, and tell me how that's going. Are you happy that that's going to be the right way for you to develop from here?
So, well, actually, we have primary bid, we have SP Angel, we have FinCap. So, it's been, we've done both, let's say, the regular way and also offering to the retail shareholders the opportunity to be on that green side. Well, what I had personally experienced at the World Bank, which is there is a lot of infrastructure, green infrastructure funding available out there. There's just not that many projects. And if you look at the city itself and what is available in the market, you've got a lot of people who want to invest in green, sustainable, developmental projects, but there's not that many projects. And this is where I took the different tack. Could have I joined a private equity firm looking at infrastructure, green infrastructure? Yes. But then, there's so many of them. Well, the reality, the important thing for me is somebody needs to be there, deliver the right project, put projects which are bankable, which will deliver quickly. So, it's a different adventure, that's for sure. But that's where the need is today, right? And that's real. Right? Like if you look at the ways the need today, there's a lot of discussions. Tech is great. Somebody needs to deliver these molecules. And the way I personally see it, and the rest of the Atome team sees it, it's electrification of the new energies is great, but when we look at it, it has its limitation. Whilst if you go towards hydrogen and ammonia, you are looking at adapting existing systems.
Yeah, I think that what I'd like to say there is that, you come from obviously a very senior position, and taking on a job like this is most interesting. And I think that when you look at it and see what you've got, who have you got around you on the board? And you mentioned your team just now. Who's the board?
Of course. So, of course, as a non-exec chairman, we've got Peter Levin.
Yeah.
He's got years of experience into delivering energy company, construction companies. So we have that framework of delivery, right, and the experience on going to the market. I was very fortunate that in DC, I've met a few people over there, but especially Maya Rose de Valadares, who accepted to join us on the board, and she used to be the ex-general manager of hydrogen for the International Energy Agency. She's done it for more than 15 years. Before that, she was with a fuel cell startup. She can tell you, what is real, what isn't, and she's been extremely useful there. Also, through a friend at the Inter-American Development Bank, I met, James Spalding. And James Spalding actually used to run the Itaipu Dam. So we talk, in Paraguay, we're talking this, second largest hydroelectric dam in the world. So he used to run it for 5 years. He was also Minister of Finance. He was also ambassador to the US, to Paraguay in the US. And just more recently, he worked with Jeffrey Sachs to help present the decarbonization strategy of Paraguay. So having somebody like that who can help us deliver on the ground, who knows how the energy works, who knows how to do the regulation, we've been fortunate. It didn't happen overnight, right? I've only joined a month and a half ago, but that's more than 12 months of work, inching away to be sure that we had something that we were confident of delivering.
Okay, why don't you give us an idea now? We've been told in the words that have come into the marketplace, it's about green hydrogen and ammonia, and you've told us that in previous years, electrolysis of water and so on has never been something which is going to be commercially viable. Yet you're making this one of these big changes, and why don't you try and talk us lesser lights through the how it works, and then maybe go into some detail about, as you said, you've got Paraguay and you've got and how it actually works in practice.
So for those who are not 100% aware, you've got obviously hydrogen. You've got different ways of making hydrogen. 95% of the hydrogen created today, out of 17 million tons a year of hydrogen is being created, and it's 95% is based on hydrocarbons, which is gas, steam, methane reformation, or even using coal. So it's very energy intensive as a process, but there is a way to use electricity to essentially use a lot of electricity, take water, crack the molecule of water into hydrogen, oxygen. And this is where the technology has advanced quite a bit to make that process more efficient, to the point that we are getting to competitiveness versus oil and gas without the need for subsidies, and that's a very important thing for us. But as I said, it takes a lot of energy, which means that 70% of the cost of cracking that molecule is related to the cost of power. So the cheaper power you get, the cheaper your end product will be, and then the more competitive it will be with the rest of the market. So that's one side. The other side is the technology side, where we've seen a bit like what we saw in solar panels 15 years ago. Solar panels have been existing for 40 years, but they've only been competitive for the past 10 years. And we are seeing now prices coming down at a rapid curve, which makes the capex element much more economical. And the third leg is the regulation. Between COP21 and COP26, we've seen a huge focus of the regulators to help kickstart that economy, because it's as much about being green as it is about being energy independent, where you can essentially displace natural gas with hydrogen or complement it. And you probably have seen in Europe now there's a regulation which is imposing an increasing proportion of hydrogen into the natural gas system. So it's, you're getting that confluence where suddenly Europe is saying 80 billion euros towards developing the hydrogen economy. In the UK, £4.5 billion to help, push towards the hydrogen economy. In the US, about £9 billion just for that. So what we are seeing is, it's, in the end, it's still a molecule, it's still a commodity, and you're going to be competing on the global scale. So you have to be the cheapest and delivering the fastest, which is why we have spent a lot of time into the selection of the location in Paraguay and Iceland, because you have the lowest cost of green power today. And that's the foundation for everything we want to do. Clearly, we will do more than these two projects. We will do vertical integration, going into the market, helping build, fishing fleets or shipping, trucking into hydrogen in our domestic market, and then export. But you need to start somewhere which is already the cheapest on the scale of production. Kind of like what you've seen. Did people make money in the US shale? But they have $70 operating cost. Yes, but the people who really make the most money are the people in Saudi Arabia who can produce it for $5 a barrel.
Yeah.
So we want to be in that side of the equation rather than the shale side.
And that's where the Wood Mackenzie report came in. Is that right? When they were talking about that, was very much a pricing thing, wasn't it?
Correct. And you look at the range of pricing that is going to go anywhere between $3 and below in the future. The reality is, with our projects, we are already very, very close to the $3. In a market where, as you look at Germany, today, if you wanted to buy hydrogen at the pump, you're already above $11, or 11 euros. Sorry about that. So it's, there is opportunity to make quite a big spread, but also just to entice the market makers to come in and help play. But one thing I wanted to add quickly, if you don't mind, is because we talk about both hydrogen and ammonia. The reality is today the big market is ammonia. And what you do is you take hydrogen molecule, you add nitrogen that you extract from the water to create ammonia, which is both a fertilizer and a fuel used for transport. And if you look at all of the work going on this year and next year, it's all about converting these big ships into running on ammonia, where even at the World Bank, we have this big report which was made, where we think that there's been a lot of discussions in converting ships to running on LNG. Well, the reality is most likely they will just leapfrog and go straight into running on ammonia, and that's really the big price coming in.
When do you think you're market leaders there then in ammonia, or at least at the forefront?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a question. If you look at Maersk, Maersk just said they will spend about $1.5 billion over the next year to convert to green fuel. Trafigura said they were going to, I think it's 6 LPG ships that they want to use to transfer into ammonia. And it's all about ensuring that, yes, they're going to make the investment. They want to make sure there will be ammonia on the other side and green ammonia on the other side. So for us, it's a question of, it's the chicken and egg which is being broken, and we are breaking that chicken and egg situation right now. And Iceland, obviously, its biggest economic contributor is shipping. The fishing fleet is also very important, and we have a lot of discussion with them. And if you look in Paraguay, you are not the second largest hydroelectric dam in the world if you're not already have some of the biggest rivers in the world. So you're looking at more than 2,000 barges, the third largest fleet of barges in the world, which is running on diesel, which is a natural market for you.
Yeah.
So and their view is, over the past year, my cost of energy has gone up by more than 40%. I want to switch to green because it's cheap, it's better, but it's more importantly, it's cheaper for my operation.
And so tell us a little bit more about Iceland and Paraguay, because it's there wouldn't be the first two nation countries that you would suddenly think of in doing this. And obviously, historically, it's the hydrogen's just been inexpensive to transport. To talk me through those, would you?
Sure. So you have to look at it first, and that's also the way we're designing our project, which to be built in phases. It's building blocks. We are not going to start with 1 gigawatt project, which will take 10 years to build. So we are starting with 50 megawatts in Paraguay, which will then increase by another 100 and then by another 100, so that the markets that we are selling to is also coming in at the same time as we're building the capacity. Iceland is the same system. And to give us where we're going to start with 30 megawatts, then add another 70 megawatt capacity. And there are two different markets, but they have a lot of similarities where Iceland is an island market. So it has to import all of its energy at a premium. And suddenly you have the opportunity for them to say, well, actually, I can use it in my domestic shipping fleet and also export the green energy to the European market. That's why we have discussions with the Port of Bremen, the Port of Groningen, some of the European utilities, of course, Trafigura, because it's one of our shareholders. But you have these two possibilities. You have a big domestic market, which is crying for green fuel, and then you have a European export market. In Paraguay, same thing. You have a country which is importing more than $400 million of fertilizers every single year. And it depends heavily on agriculture because it is the fourth largest exporter of soybeans. So if you can just take some of these, some of that market of fertilizer, because ammonia is the basis for fertilizer, you're already in a winning position. And then you look at the barges, the fleet of barges, which go to Brazil, to Argentina. You not only have a Paraguayan market, but also the Brazilian market and the Argentinian market. And then as we grow and we get into the gigawatt scale, then we will sell it, let's say, to Asia. We already had some incoming from a couple of Japanese traders. And shipping it in long distances is actually not that complicated anymore. It used to be, but now shipping ammonia, over 10,000 nautical miles is almost, it's becoming, not trend, but it has been proven at scale now.
Yeah. I noticed that Jim Ratcliffe was getting involved in the area as well, which comes as no great surprise, given having watched his career so far. I noticed that he said that he thought it was slightly greater in Europe than in the UK, but you're putting your roots down in the UK. Obviously, you feel confident to be here, and you probably believe that he's right in saying that it's the right power to be in.
Well, it's Ratcliffe comes from midstream refining. This is a midstream process, and we are selling a commodity, right? Again, we're not selling electrons into landlocked. So you have a skill set that we have, and we have a market in the UK which understands some of that risk. And I mean, despite my accent, my mother was English, so it's I have a little bit of French European roots and British roots, but I think for us, the UK market makes sense because it's a mix of technology, first in play, and the commodity angle, which you need to have a very good sense of and a good control of. But clearly, I think he's going into the right direction. We are doing things, as well. Our own scale for us, it's really a build out. But by us, being reasonably sized allows us to go much faster than our competition, which is why we say we're an accelerator in the end. And and those who deliver fast first will be the winners.
It sounds great, and thank you very much. Just before we get to the very end, because we've nearly done our time limit, but I normally ask a CEO to tell me how the business is going to look like in 18 months' time. So what I'd like to do is divide that into two, because I feel that there's a sort of shorter term one you get set up and settled in and get your PPAs and everything else in place. So I'd like to know what you think you're going to be doing in the next couple of years, but whether you think that it's nearer 10 years before you're real, you know, sort of, you've got heavyweight form to you.
Yes. Well, it's, you know, so as you say, like over the next six to 9 months, it's all about getting to final investment decision, which means we already have MOUs and LOIs and you name it, but now it's all about firming them into final long-term contracts. So the power purchase agreement is the foundation for everything. And we're looking at 10, 20-year power purchase agreement at fixed price, fixed quantities. That's the number one value driver. Then we look at, you know, EPC contractors, making sure that we can deliver on time with the right quality, with the right supplier. Clearly, the offtake agreements are very important to match, you know, the power purchase agreement, which then allows us to do the proper project financing, to again, wrap everything so that in 9 months' time, we know what is going to cost, how we're going to produce, when are we going to produce, with the idea to get to first hydrogen in 2024, early 2024. Again, you know, we're going like this. We're not going a hockey stick. It's all about going like this. And if we do things right, just with these two projects, again, we have ambitions to do more. But, you know, if we do things right, and if we believe our own internal estimates, we could be a $100 million EBITDA type of company by 2028. Again, a lot of things need to happen properly, but by the end of this year, we will have line of sight where, you know, again, if we had to use oil and gas vernaculars, it's you know, we are in a PUD situation, and it's all about putting everything in order to go and get into construction so that we can produce and produce fast. If we go further down the line, you will probably see us being invested on the downstream side, you know, helping, you know, some of these shipping companies to switch their engines to run ammonia, helping, let's say, import some of the Hyundai trucks into some of our markets, which are, which are already very competitively priced hydrogen, trucks running on hydrogen, and just going in that sense. And we had also some reverse inquiries about other projects. So it's so the next 2 years will be incredibly busy, and then, you know, by 2030 we will either be a very, very, very big elephant, or somebody actually said, you know, listen, these are gazelles, and if it's a Shell or somebody else who has a, you know, who has a view of hydrogen, and they want to farm into some of our projects, you know, we'll be happy to have them as our partners. But at the moment we're operating, and we want to deliver the value, and again, you know, because we can deliver fast, getting a real idea of how fast we can accelerate things, and then see our share price follow it. But that's, you know, again, that's the dream of any CEO, right? We know it's going to be bumpy, but to get to where we are today, where we are, again, we've done a number of roadshows, we have a primary bid going now. There's 18 months of work behind, and with real good support from the countries we operate in. So we're pretty confident that we're in the right direction.
Well, that's fantastic. Really appreciate you taking time out from this process to speak to me today. Olivier, thank you very much for joining me. My name's Malcolm Graham Wood, and I've been doing my CEO interview on Core Finance this afternoon, where my guest has been Olivier Mussat, the CEO of Atome PLC, who you will see all around you in London now as they do their raise. I wish you the very best of luck, Olivier. Many thanks for joining me, and see you again soon. And bye for now.
Thank you.